Next, we're going to start stretching our glutes a little bit. And we're going to take it into a rotation. So what I've been doing is crossing my ankle over. You know this stretch very well, the glute stretch. So I'm pushing my ankle out, pushing it out. I have my hands hooked behind my left leg. I'm pushing my ankle into my right thigh. I'm going to push, 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 and then my upper body's going to come up and come along for the ride. I'm going to keep pushing and then pull back with my arms to get the stretch. So I'm feeling my glute is stretching on this one, which is really nice, but I'm not really getting into the TFL too much. You might feel you are. So to get into that TFL, we may have to do a little more. So I'm going to grab my foot with my left hand, and I'll hold the bottom of my foot. I'm going to extend the left leg, and I'm going to kind of push out with my foot and take my foot over to the side. I'm going to push my right hip away from my head as I rotate over to the side. And that should help get into that glute medius TFL world. Land over there. And then sometimes if I'm just lazy and I don't feel like, because this is kind of a resistance stretch, I'm pushing out, and I'm moving over to the side. It's going to get into your piriformis too. This is a really nice warm-up, but if you're really feeling kind of lazy, just put your knee underneath it, set your foot down, and then rotate out. Rotate your knee over to the left. And you should probably get a really nice passive stretch for your TFL, glute medius, all that stuff. Try to kind of push your knee out if you want. It may give you a little more stretch. If you're able to do half lotus, you can push it out a little more. You don't have to. I mean, I know some of you might not be very flexible. Some of you might be really flexible. What I've been doing, since I am pretty flexible, I know this is kind of extreme, but I've been actually extending this leg and pulling my leg over and rolling down to the ground. This just feels really good to me. So I'm pushing out a little bit with my leg and I'm pulling it in. You know, kind of like the foot behind the head thing. Anyway, we're going to move to the other side and stretch the other glute out. So cross the ankle over, lifting up, taking my hands behind my right thigh. I'm pushing out with my left ankle into my thigh. Push, 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 let the upper body come along for the ride, because the upper body is the resistance that is countering. So then I'm going to keep pushing my left ankle into my thigh and let my upper body drag it back. Oh, that's a good stretch. And we're trying to keep the hips on the ground. But if they come up a little bit, that's okay. But usually when the hips start to come up off of the ground, that's just your signal that it's the end of the stretch. You've reached your range of motion. And then we'll move into the piriformis, glute medius, that kind of thing. So I'm dorsiflexing my foot. By the way, I didn't mention that on the other side. You might want to do that because some of you might have a tendency to sickle your ankle, and you're going to lose a lot of stretch when you do that. And it's just better for your ankle to dorsiflex when you're doing this stretch anyway. So push out with your foot, hook your hand, and then as you're pushing out, I'm going to drag it across the body. My left hip is going to move away from my head as I roll to the side and back again. And again, you can take it all the way over. You could pull your foot up as long as you're kind of pushing out. If you let go, your foot should be like going like that. So I'm pushing out with my foot, pulling it in. I know this is a little extreme, but this just feels really good to me. And some of you might not like it at all. You might want to go back to this, put your foot on the ground, and then rotate over. Okay? And I'm kind of pushing my knee out away. And then we're going to move on to hip flexor. And what I want to work on with hip flexor is, so I realized this the other day, because often IT band syndrome is related to problems with your iliopsoas. And I was in a yoga class last week, and we just did a butterfly stretch at the end. And I realized, sorry, I'm doing half lotus and I'm pushing my foot. As I said, this is my normal stretching I'm doing in the evening. I'm just doing it on tape. I realized that as I put my feet together, did butterfly stretch, and I opened my knees, just kind of feel both sides and notice which side is tighter. So as I lowered my knees down, I noticed that my iliacus, which is the lower part of your iliopsoas, was super, super tight on the side that I'm having this problem. And that is very, very common. If your psoas is jacked up, you're going to have all kinds of problems because it cradles your pelvis. So if it's really tight, it's going to be like pushing things in a weird, it's usually anterior tilted a little bit. And usually with that anterior tilt comes the knee. The anterior tilt comes the knee falling inward when we are doing activities. It's very, very common. So we need to stretch that psoas muscle. And I don't have a blanket nearby, so I'm just going to grab a yoga block. If you've got a blanket, use your blanket. But I'm just going to use a yoga block for now, and I'm going to put my knee on it. And my other foot's going to come forward. Use a chair or something near you if you've got balance issues. I'm already falling over. So I'm gonna do the hip flexor stretch with my legs scissoring together, belly in, shift forward and back. And for some of you, the rectus femoris, the quad, may be your issue here. But for me, I already know. So you can just stay straight ahead. You're doing the opposite of sticking your butt out. So pull the belly in. Imagine your back knee pulling forward, your front foot pulling back. Straight up and down, so don't lean forward. Shift forward and back. You should feel your back foot pushing into the mat when you do this. And then we're going to turn a little bit, so I'm going to bring this foot in. I've done this in some other videos. And then shift forward. I'm going to imagine my inner thighs pulling together. I'm kind of turned forward, but I'm kind of turning to the side. Imagine my inner thighs pulling together, and I'm going to shift and lean and reach. I want to pull my tailbone under a lot. And you can move in and out of the stretch, pulling together, and then release. And you know what? After you've done this, I say it's fair that you can do a passive stretch because I've had a lot of psoas problems in my life, and I swear they cause every problem in my body. And sometimes I have pulled both. I have strained both. This last one over here, I couldn't even do a plank for like 6 months. So big problems, yes. But I found that these active stretches, the resistance stretches really do help. But then after you're done, just take a moment. Shift yourself forward to do a little passive stretch on them. And just kind of melt into it. Let your hips fall, kind of move around. Let your leg internally rotate, externally rotate. Just see where you're feeling the tension. Kind of hang out there for a little bit. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. And then we're going to do the other side. This is going to be a little bit longer video than I thought, because I'd like to do a pigeon variation as well. So now I've got my other knee on the block, my right knee forward, leg forward. I'm going to imagine this left knee pulling into the chest, right foot pulling back towards me as I shift forward and back. Just kind of working that hip flexor. Remember to stay straight up and down, because as soon as you lean forward into this, you're going to lose all the stretch in your psoas and your hip flexor. So we do have a quad muscle that attaches to your iliac crest. That is the rectus femoris. It is a hip flexor too. So sometimes we don't know. Sometimes when our psoas gets really jacked up, we just stop using the psoas and we start using the rectus femoris. So they might be both jacked up because you're just substituting one for the other. Go as deep as you want. You may feel like once you get forward, this feels great. I want to keep going forward. As long as you're not leaning too much forward, that's fine. And as you get forward, you're going to find that pressing that back foot into the mat is going to give you a better stretch too. That's what I love about this stuff. There's there's really no wrong way to do it. You can work in arcs, work in little, increments here and there. As long as it's not hurting you, as long as you can still resist and move, that's fine. And then we're going to turn that foot in and scissor your inner thighs together, move to the side, and then lean. Oh, that's a good stretch. Remember, as you do this, you're turning your body, you're turning your hips, so we've got to remember to open this right knee. So open the right knee so that it's kind of angled to the outside of the foot. I know that's a lot going on. And I can tell my psoas on this is just getting really burned out. So I'm gonna let it go now. You guys can, as you do these videos, you can stop and do whatever you want. And then I've got my toes turned out. I'm going to walk my hands forward, and I'm just going to melt into this. And I'm just going to move around a little bit, And then probably after this, well, I'm going to do the quad stretch at the wall. You could opt to do, I think my last live video, I went over this, where my foot was out to the side and it rotated in. You could opt to do that stretch for your quad, or we're going to come to the wall. I'm going to put my block up here, and I'm going to put my knee down. I'm going to spin my leg up the wall and rise up. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because, although it feels really good, I'm pushing into the wall to shift forward and keep pushing into the wall to move back. Yeah, getting into that quad is going to be important too, because the quad is right next to the IT band, right? And then we're going to switch sides. We've got 2 more stretches after this. And one of them I'm just going to go over pretty quickly. So my leg's up the wall, my foot's up the wall. I'm going to bring the other foot forward and rise. I'm pushing the foot into the wall. That is strength. And then keep pushing and Bring your body back. So this is a quad stretch, but it should feel like it's on fire. Basically. We're just firing up the quad stretch. I know a lot of people do this stretch passively at the gym. And also remember, when you're really tight, move your blanket or your pillow or your block away from the wall more, your padding. Because your knee is going to be, the farther away your knee is from the wall, the easier this is going to be. You just don't want to be directly on your kneecap. So as your knee bends, that kneecap just kind of falls into a little groove, and you shouldn't be right on it. It should be kind of right above it. If you're not, then you probably need to work on lengthening your quads a lot more. So take the other option. All right. I'll do a couple more. Oh, my legs are going to feel so good tomorrow. And then we're going to move into pigeon. And what I wanted to demonstrate with pigeon is, we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but while you're here, so I'm bringing my knee forward and putting my shin at a diagonal. I'm sitting back, but I'm going to kind of rock out with my hip a little bit. So try that. Try pushing your shin, your foot into the mat, your right, the front one, and then kind of rocking out a little bit. And see if you can get into that piriformis a little bit more. Or you can lift and lower. You should feel pretty loose from the first stretch we did, so we're not going to spend a lot of time, but that was just an idea that I wanted to throw out there. And then the last stretch that we are going to do, you might need a towel or a strap or an old tie or something. You don't necessarily need it. You could use your hands, and I'll show you how. So if you're just using your hands, you're going to extend your leg like that. You're going to pull your toes back toward your shin, and you're going to take your leg across the body. Imagine the inside of your leg growing shorter and the outside of your leg growing longer. So you are going to sickle your foot here. And just kind of pull back. So if you've got that strap, that makes it a lot easier. We're doing a passive stretch for the lateral hamstring. Because I've been finding lately that my lateral hamstring's kind of been a little overactive. I just want them to calm down a little bit. As you're doing this, pull this right hip away from the head. And then switch legs. So since I did tell you to have a strap at the beginning of the video, I'm just going to do it without. So I'm going to take my leg across the body. I'm going to pull my toes back toward my shin, sickle my foot. So imagine the inside of your leg growing short, the outside of your leg growing long. And just start moving it over. And this is a dandy stretch for me. This feels good. I can feel that lateral hamstring right into that lateral condyle of the tibia. So lateral hamstring attaches there. IT band attaches there. Actually, lateral just attaches to tibia, but there's a lot of stuff that attaches there. All right. And that is about all I've got. That's what I've been doing. I hope somebody out there can find this helpful. And you don't have to do it every day, but if you could do it, a couple times, 3 times a week, it would be great. And then might be back to running or whatever you've been doing that's been causing it. Okay? Anyway, happy stretching. I'm planning on doing a live video tomorrow